The complete works of Swami Vivekananda Cosmology Part 2. What we call matter in modern times was called by the ancient psychologists Bhutas the external elements. There is one element which, according to them, is eternal. Every other element is produced out of this one. It is called Aksha. It is somewhat similar to the idea of ether of the moderns, though not exactly similar. Along with this element, there is the primal energy called prana. Prana and Aksha combine and recombine and form the elements out of them. Then, at the end of the kalp, everything subsides and goes back to the Aksha and the prana. There is in the Rigveda, the oldest human writing in existence, a beautiful passage describing creation, and its most poetical. When there was neither ought nor not, when darkness was rolling over darkness, what existed? And the answer is given. It then existed without vibration. This prana existed then, but there was no motion in it. Anid, the bottom, means existed without vibration. Vibration had stopped. Then, when the kalp begins, after an immense interval, the anidvatam, unvibrating atom, commences to vibrate, and blow after blow is given by prana to aksha. The atoms become condensed, and as they are condensed, different elements are formed. We generally find these things very curiously translated. People do not go to the philosophers or the commentators for their translation, and have not the brains to understand them themselves. A silly man reads 3 letters of Sanskrit and translates a whole book. They translate the elements as fire, water, and so on. If they would go to the commentators, they would find they do not mean air or anything of the sort. The aksha, acted upon by the repeated blows of prana, produces vayu or vibrations. This vayu vibrates, and the vibrations, growing more and more rapid, result in friction, giving rise to heat, tejas. Then this heat ends in liquefaction, apa. Then that liquid becomes solid. We had ether and motion, and then came heat, then it became liquefied, and then it condensed into gross matter and goes back into exactly the reverse way. The solid will be liquefied and will then be converted into a mass of heat, and that will slowly get back into motion. That motion will stop and this kalp will be destroyed. Then again it will come back and again dissolve into ether. Prana cannot work alone without the help of aksha. All that we know in the form of motion, vibration, or thought is a modification of the prana, and everything that we know in the shape of matter, either as form or as resistance, is a modification of the aksha. The prana cannot live alone or act without a medium. When it is pure prana, it has the aksha itself to live in. And when it changes into forces of nature, say gravitation or centrifugal force, it must have matter. You have never seen force without matter or matter without force. What we call force and matter are simply the gross manifestation of these same things, which, when superfine, are called prana and aksha. Prana you can call in English life the vital force, but you must not restrict it to the life of man. At the same time, you must not identify it with spirit, Atman. So this goes on. Creation cannot have either a beginning or an end. It is an eternal ongoing. We shall state another position of these old psychologists, which is that all gross things are the result of fine things. Everything that is gross is composed of fine things, which they call the tanmatras, the fine particles. I smell a flower. To smell, something must come in contact with my nose. The flower is there, but I do not see it move towards me. That which comes from the flower and in contact with my nose is called the Tan Mantra, fine molecules of that flower. So, with heat, light, and everything, these Tan Mantras can again be subdivided into atoms. Different philosophers have different theories, and we know these are only theories. It is sufficient for our purpose to know that everything gross is composed of things that are very, very fine. We first get the gross elements which we feel externally, and then come the fine elements with which the nose, eyes, and ears come in contact. Ether waves touch my eyes. I cannot see them, yet I know that they must come in contact with my eyes before I can see light. Here are the eyes, but the eyes do not see. Take away the brain center, the eyes will still be there, as also the picture of the outside world complete on the retinae. Yet the eyes will not see. So the eyes are only a secondary instrument, not the organ of the vision. The organ of vision is the nerve center in the brain. Likewise, the nose is an instrument, and there is an organ behind it. The senses are simply the external instruments. It may be said that these different organs, indriyas, as they are called in Sanskrit, are the real sets of perception. It is necessary for the mind to be joined to an organ to perceive. It is a common experience that we do not hear the clock strike when we happen to be buried in study. Why? The ear was there. The sound was carried through it to the brain. Yet it was not heard because the mind did not attach itself to the organ of hearing. There is a different organ for each different instrument. For if one served for all, we should find that when the mind joined itself to it, all the senses would be equally active. But it is not so, as we have seen from the instance of the clock. If there was only one organ for all the instruments, the mind would see and hear at the same time, and would hear and smell at the same time, and it would be impossible for it not to do all these at one and the same time. Therefore, it is necessary that there should be a separate organ for each sense. This has been born out of modern physiology. It is certainly possible for us to hear and see at the same time, but that it is because the mind attaches itself partially to two centers.